You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network. Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Game Corner. My name is Kieran Calicorn as always, and we have a very special guest this week from Australia. This is Michael Hilliard, who is a journalist and podcaster who hosts the very popular Red Line podcast. How are you doing, Michael?
I'm good. It's great to be here.
Excellent. Thank you so much for making the time for this. Are you having a good day?
It's been good. We're just buried in a bunch of stories and watching the world, burn around. So it's great to be, showing you with the one time of my week where I get to actually relax and play a bit of games to get away from this crazy planet.
Well, I'm sorry to be a contrarian, but before we get into the fun, relaxing games stuff, I'd love if you could chat a bit more about your podcast work. So tell us about the Red Line podcast. What is it that you do?
So the Red Line, what we do is we do a big geopolitical deep dive every fortnight. So we get big experts in from, the White House, the CIA, MI6, Downing Street, Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, who come in and give their expert opinions on one big subject shaping the news. So whether it's, the Russian hypersonic missile program or, the Libyan civil war, they come in and give their opinions on what's happening, how we got here, and where the war's heading. So, really interesting stuff to be focusing on big stories that we kind of miss in the news. A lot of these big stories, you have 60 seconds on CNN to pitch it, but we take it a full hour and a half and really dole out how a small conflict like, let's say, Yemen is actually absolutely instrumental to the entire region.
Well, I mean, that's a very good point because, we won't get too kind of into the weeds on this, but we are, especially amidst the lockdown, we are kind of living in an age where it's very hard not just to find information, but find things to focus on and really kind of dive into because everything moves so fast.
Oh, yeah, there's just so many stories every day. I mean, my phone, I wake up, because I have friends who are journalists all around the world and we all, chat about, I have friends who focus on certain areas and I'll wake up with 4 messages, one, crisis in this country, crisis in that country. And it's really hard to focus, even for someone who has, this is what I do, all the time. I don't know how the average person can keep any sort of idea on all the crazy things going on.
That's exactly it. And you said off the air that you started this podcast 6 or 7 months ago. What was kind of the spark that made you want to do it?
So it was very weird. I've been ghostwriting in a bit for quite a while now, but I've been traveling and reporting from these, places like, Uzbekistan and Iran and Russia and all these places. And I had this weird black book of contacts that were, guys from the Taliban and guys from Russian intelligence and guys from British intelligence and, this weird network of people. And a friend of mine who runs a couple of radio stations over here was like, look, let's do a show because, it'd be pretty crazy to get, the Taliban's opinion on something. And I'm like, it sounds like a weird thing to do. And kicked it off thinking it would be kind of a side project, who cares? It's just going to something I do in my spare time and end up gobbling up most of my time. And now, it consumes my every waking moment.
Yes, well, I don't do anything on the kind of global level of that. And I still understand how kind of projects like this can just sort of, because the second you start doing this, everything in your life sort of starts circumventing into the podcasting. Do you find
all the time? You end up just, it just you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, that, that's why that country's doing that. Okay. And then you writing it down and my poor girlfriend will be woken up by me being like, oh, no, you got to understand Serbia will do this if that happens. And she go, yes, honey, it's lovely. You're winning, son, and put me back to bed.
Well, I can't speak for journalism, but I can speak for, I have done quite a lot of kind of playwriting in the past. And I do know that all the best ideas arrive at roughly between 3 and 4 in the morning.
Yep. My entire office is, it looks like, one of these crazy people's rooms where there's just maps and string everywhere. And it's like, it's all connected. This general knows this person and he's had a photo with this person. My whole life has now just become map string and small amounts of
If you haven't seen it, I must send you the It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia thing of Charlie's kind of meme of all the things on the wall with a cigarette shaking in his hand and all that kind of stuff.
That is me. I am the biggest fan of Always Sunny to begin with. And yeah, Pepe Silva is, I'd love to slot any Pepe Silva references I ever could into anything. Charlie's energy there is just me at every Thursday afternoon.
Well then, to kind of pivot out of the sort of panic attack stuff, like we've had a lot of different guests from all over the world kind of talking about their experience of the lockdown and kind of how gaming has helped them kind of cope with that. How have things been? I'm assuming you've been in Australia throughout the past 2 or 3 months kind of dealing with this, have you?
Yeah, I flew back in. It was weird. I was in Hong Kong when it first kicked off. When they were reading the stories of, hey, this thing is, there's some weird disease coming out of China. It was like, oh, that's weird. And then kind of came home, and then I went to Malaysia as it all kicked off again. I came home. Australia's been pretty good for it. Where it's not really, we haven't seen the numbers that a lot of places have. But it's been very odd because obviously a lot of my friends are journalists who are living in, Kyrgyzstan and Iran, and America and the US. And, gaming's been really good to kind of just, we'll sit there and play Call of Duty or something and just be playing and, comparing our lockdowns to each other. It's been a really kind of leveling experience for everyone.
And like, you say you've been talking to journalists all over the world, like kind of, has there been a unifying type of experience, like, or is it like different strokes for different folks depending on where everyone is, like?
Oh, it's hugely. I think the biggest wake up call for me, I was on this US panel show doing a COVID piece, and they had this guest on before me, and they asked him, how's COVID going for you? And he was saying, well, me and my wife, we bought up a bunch of guns, and we take shifts to make sure we sleep with one person awake, and if anyone comes through the door, I'm going to shoot them because that's what I'm going to do because I want to defend myself. And they went to me, he's like, Michael, you're in Australia, how's COVID going? I went, well, I bought 6 bottles of vodka. I'm down to 4, and that's about it. So it's incredibly different compared to countries. Over here, the whole thing was quite mild because we locked down very early. So it really is different strokes for different folks on this one.
I know exactly what you mean because like when I'm not doing this, I work in a bookshop, and like we, fortunately, Ireland and Dublin in particular, closed up relatively early, kind of late February, early March. But you just heard reports of people still kind of going about their day to day from like places like the UK and that kind of stuff. And like, yeah, we didn't even do a massive stock up here. There was a bit of a run on toilet paper, but apart from that, it was just kind of staying indoors and that was it. Like, I'm glad to see that kind of where you've been based is kind of more or less the same. Like,
yeah, it was toilet paper just disappeared at the start, and then there was a lot of weird things like our prime minister came out and said that puzzles are now an essential service. It was very weird.
Actually, I will back up your prime minister on that because the first thing we ran out of in the bookshop was jigsaws.
Yeah, I don't doubt. I mean, I went and bought a jigsaw myself, and yeah, no, it was weird the things that you really needed. It was like toilet paper and odd things that I never thought would be, I traveled to war zones where that is a scarcity, but never thought I'd see it in my cozy little place in Australia.
All right, well then let's pivot from there into the game. So what game have you been playing the most since the lockdown started then?
I mean, I'm a terrible basic person, but the game I'm playing most is Call of Duty, Modern Warfare and Warzone. I've been playing quite a lot of that because my friends are all playing it. I'm not a huge first-person shooter guy, but I've affectionately been called the bullet sponge. And at this point, I spend most of my time acting as they call bait. Hey Michael, head in there and see if there's any enemies so we can clean them up later.
It's a tough job, but someone has to do it.
Well, yeah, I think the last time I played Warzone, we got towards the end, and my orders from the friend of mine who's very good at the game was, hey, can you get in the car and honk the horn as many times as you can and cause the most ruckus and lure these guys out so we can then snipe them off. And that's about as useful as I am at these kind of things.
Okay, so can I just double check, because there have been quite a lot of Call of Duty games. When you say Call of Duty Modern Warfare, are we talking like one of the most up-to-date ones, or like a PlayStation 2? Like,
no, I used to play that one quite a lot. That was I actually ended up going to Chernobyl just to, because I played that old one so much. But yeah, no, the brand new one, the one with all the, and it got so different. I think the last Call of Duty I played was Black Ops 1 before this. And then all of a sudden I come in and there's attachments on your guns and you can name your guns thing. And there's people, doing thumbs up to me as they kill me. It got so much more complicated.
Yeah, I remember, I think, and this is to show how far back I am on Call of Duty. I lost patience with it back in Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare 2 when
Yep.
fragging was a thing. You killed someone
Yep.
and they automatically dropped a grenade and they essentially got a free kill for no good reason.
Yep. It's I remember it being called martyrdom, if memory serves.
That was it. Yeah, yeah.
And everyone used to use it. That and the grenade launchers that everyone would just like attach to the guns and at the start of the round, and you just end up, killing 4 or 5 people. But the weirdest thing, one of my best friends is like he's currently unemployed at the moment, so he's been playing for sort of 8 hours a day, and he is just phenomenally good. Like, could probably go pro with this thing. So whenever I play by myself, I feel really good about myself because I'm matched with people about my skill, and I'm like, yeah, no, I'm pretty good, I'm doing well. And then he'll invite me into his server, and I just go back from being where I feel comfortable with myself to being, like a duck kicked between people at this point.
I know exactly what you mean, because a few weeks ago we had a lovely chap, Neil, on, who introduced me to this Star Trek Online game. And I started playing it on my own in the single player, and I felt like kind of top of my game. And then I started playing with them, who've played for literally 10 years. And they've got like the most advanced ships, and I've got this piddly little escape pod thing trailing behind them. So I know it's very humbling to play with incredible experts, like, kind of when you kind of are only casual, like.
Well, that's the thing. My television is also like, I bought my television for $50 3 years ago. So while these guys are playing on, like these full, beautiful little gaming rigs, I'm playing on my TV with like squinting like an old man sitting 2 inches from my television, waiting for like, is that a person or is that a car? I can't really tell at this point.
I imagine just firing like wildly into the air. Like.
I do. I named all my guns Spray and Pray for a good reason.
And tell me something. Why did you go back to this game now then? Was it just because your friends were playing for the social aspect, or was it something else?
I think there was 2 things that brought me to it. It was one, that all my friends were playing, and the second one, they did this amazing little feature in the new Call of Duty that when you kill someone, it turns their mic on for about 5 seconds. Which I love, because there's nothing better than shooting someone and hearing this like 10-year-old kid scream down the line like, one more. Nothing is more humbling than that. I can have a terrible day at work, but knowing I've ruined as a 6-year-old today and I'm bullying children is the most power I'm going to have that day.
I had the reverse experience because I tried the game Fortnite, because I do drama teaching, and a lot of like kind of sort of kids on there. And I would play it and I'd go, no, and you just hear all these children's laughter, like, because you're such a new player compared to these experts with llamas and things, like.
It just boggled them. Like the other one, all my a bunch of like my Russian friends all play this shooter it's kind of like Fortnite, but what if Fortnite with, what if the maker of Fortnite had depression for 40 years, is Escape from Tarkov? It's the best way I could ever sum it up.
Now, before you get into this, I actually haven't heard of Escape from Tarkov before you mentioned it. So what platform is it on? Where can people find it?
It's weird. It's like only played by like Russians, and it's only on this like independent indie game platform. You can't find it on Steam. And it's only played by like angry Russian teenagers who will all immediately swear at you in Russian. But everyone is brutal, and there's like, it's like a survival zombie game, except all the other players are Russians and they all have Russian mindsets, and they will take it out on you. If you are the English speaking person in the lobby, you will be hunted.
So you mentioned that you are essentially like a kind of bullet soap for like Call of Duty. Is it your same experience with Escape from Tarkov then?
Oh, it's far worse, because at least some Call of Duty players take pity on me. The Russians, because that's the thing, my Russian's all right. I can speak some good Russian, but after a few drinks, my Russian goes from a nice Moscow accent to a disgusting, from like, to like, my awful Australian accent comes out. And it just reverberates. It's those sort of old movies where you hear like the person crack the twig and it just reverberates through the whole jungle.
Yeah.
As soon as my awful Australian accent reverberates through the mics and the servers, you just feel every Russian just dive in and find me.
I must say, terrifying. I don't mean to be like a red flag to a bull, but I've never heard Russian spoken in an Australian accent. That's a thing of beauty.
It's awful. It really is. Australian accent's awful. It's a butchering of the English language as is, but butchering Russian is just a hat on a hat at this point.
And what made you seek out this game and indeed stick with it then?
That's the thing. I had a bunch of Russian journalists who were all like, "Oh, we have this game, and you should play it, and you'll love it. It's not that hard," they said, and I was like, "Oh, I trust them." And then I got online, and I think they just brought me in as a punching bag. It became, that classic English game, where they send the foxes out and they go hunt them. I think I am the fox in that game.
Well, at least you're the center of attention in that scenario, I suppose.
I had PTSD from it, but sure, yeah.
And tell me something then, like, because as I've mentioned many times, we've had kind of people on who play games like apocalyptic games and that kind of stuff because they find the extreme levels of it relaxing compared to the lockdown kind of scenario. What is it that draws you into these shooter games? Do you find them relaxing or adrenaline kicking? Like, what's your kind of feel for them?
I think it's actually the opposite for me. It's the least thinking you have to do all day. I spend my entire time thinking, about, Filipino politics, and then to come and just shoot at an 8-year-old who's screaming down the server is kind of oddly relaxing. Particularly as I'm not very good at the game, but there's just something satisfying about it. But I used to be a real nut for real-time strategy games, and particularly the old like Age of Empires and medieval Total War kind of games. So this is me kind of getting out and doing first-person shooters for the first time, and definitely feeling the learning curve there.
I know what you mean, though, because I used to play a lot of Age of Empires, Empire at War, that kind of stuff. But when you play shooters, you almost don't have time to think. You just have to kind of go with whatever it throws at you, like.
Oh, it's more reaction time more than anything. The game I used to play ages ago, it's the most obscure game. I've never found anyone else who plays it. I think there's like 20 downloads in the world. It was this game called Empire's Dawn of the Modern World, and it was like this Age of Empires ripoff. It was the same creators, but you go from medieval up to World War II, and I think me and my brother have collectively clocked probably 3,000 hours on it. But I don't think anywhere else in the world knows it. So if any of your listeners know Empire Dawn of the Modern World, please hit me up. I will be your best friend, because they will now,
because we'll put that big flashy image on top of your episode. Like,
good. I hope so. It's an obscure game from 2003 that I've collectively clocked about 3,000 hours on over the years.
I know exactly what you mean, though, because I was a big PC player back in the 90s and 2000s, and a lot of the games I've gone looking for simply don't exist anymore because they come from a sort of CD-ROM pre-online era of gaming, like.
Yeah, it used to come in 2 CD-ROMs because it was that old. And it took about, I remember playing it on Windows XP, if that kind of gives you a hint on how old it is. It was just this weirdly addictive little game that, like, I would hate to know how much of the like exact strategies my brother and me have learned about it over the years, and it's just such useless knowledge. I forget friends' birthdays all the time, but boy, oh boy, do I know the best strategy to use France in World War One.
I know. I think my big ones were Tactics, which is a weird one no one remembers, about a pterodactyl that has to lift sheep with a magnet. And Chaos, can't find it anywhere. And Chaos Gate, which is a Warhammer game, which so far as I know still hasn't made it to Steam, but it's so out of date you can't even play it if you have the CD-ROM. And I think it's actually pre-XP at this point, like.
Ooh, wow.
But like you were saying, I still remember how the strategies and how to beat the first 3 levels glued to the back of my head. But like critical moments from like my own daughter's like kind of first year, nothing. If it's not on Facebook, it's gone.
There's a lot of glasses of vodka between now and then. So there's so many little games like Rambo. No, not Rambo. Turok, the dinosaur hunter game. I used to play that.
I remember that. Yeah,
all the time. I think I played the free demo where you get like 2 levels for free, like a gazillion times when my parents bought it for Christmas one year.
But that was it as well. If you were like a kid in the 90s playing games, you would get a demo and you'd be happy with it forever. I think I had the first level of pod racing and just kept doing that endlessly and didn't get bored. Like,
I played so much pod racing, but I played a Malaysia burn of it. So it was like bits and pieces would just disappear all the time. It was just like awful. Like there was one map that they just, I think, built in terribly. You just fall off the map randomly. That and Pokemon. I played so much Pokemon as a kid.
Oh, was it like, are we talking like a normal version of Pokemon or like a Malaysian version of Pokemon?
No, the normal version. I actually played. I was the guy who took it way too seriously as a primary school kid, to the point where people would like, "Where do you catch a Jigglypuff?" Well, Michael will know that, and I would be like, "Well, I can tell you that for 3 Chupa Chups. I can tell you where you're gonna get that Jigglypuff, eh?
It's
You
funny
want to
that
go
you
to Mount
mentioned
Moon?"
that. Because, yeah, we had, in our school, our school backed onto like a park with a big field.
Hmm.
And like when Pokemon was the big thing, you would have people who are experts at the card game, people who are experts at the game,
Yeah.
and people who are experts at collecting the thing. And people just became such big Pokemon experts so quickly. Like,
Oh, it was my Pokemon Silver. I think I clocked about 1,500 hours on that thing. Yeah, like I just spent so much time on it. Never. That's the thing. It's now dead because there's the old silver cartridges. They all had a battery in them that all dies
oh.
eventually, which is kind of annoying. But I remember just like booting up and then seeing so many bad names. I think my right to like how young I was. I think my rival's name was Butthead or something. And I used
It's
to giggle
pretty
every time.
accurate for that rival, though, to be fair.
It is indeed, but it was always. I used to giggle every time, like Butthead challenged you to a fight. I'm like, oh, got him, boys, got him.
Oh yeah, it's, you know what, actually I used to give all the Pokemon nicknames, and it scared me off getting a tattoo because
Yep.
I'd give a Pokemon a really creative nickname, 3 days later I'd hate it.
Yep.
Like naming them
And
all after the Beatles or something like that, you know?
And then you get super attached to certain Pokemon for absolutely no reason.
Exactly. Yeah.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a friend of mine, seriously, was on the show last week. Like she went, I think, straight from like the Game Boy Advance ones up to like whatever the Switch ones are now, Sword and Shield, and having all these new Pokemon, like, and trying to keep her old ones at the same time was just too much emotions at once. Like,
Mm. Well, that's the thing. I don't know anything past, I think, Gen 2. So for me, it's like I'm pretty sure I can probably name the whole first 150 Pokemon like in sequential numeric order from 1 to 150. Couldn't tell you anything past about Gen 2 though. Like I have just no knowledge. That is uncharted water, new territory to me past Gen 2.
I'm exactly the same. We had the Pokemon Red, Blue, Yellow, Gold, and Silver, and then went
Yep.
no further. Like it's I have a friend of mine, Lisa, runs an up-to-date Pokemon show and talks about all these elaborate Pokemon 495, and it means nothing to me. Even on the Switch, I just got what is effectively a remake of Pokemon Yellow. Like I'm full on very retro. But I gotta ask, since you seemed like you put a lot of hours into it, did you ever finish a Pokedex?
I did. I finished my Pokedex. I even went and forced my poor parents to drive hours away to go to some event where they gave you a Celebi. I made my poor parents years ago drive like 3 hours away to take me to some event where they would give you a Celebi just so I could finish the Pokedex. I was that kind of guy. I mean, I still have, to show my love for Pokemon at the time as a kid, I still have very little feeling in the bottom of my feet because I barefoot walked to the local video rental place in a 42-degree day to go get Pokemon Stadium 2. Yeah, like Pokemon was my entire life for about 5 years there.
Wow, and I got it because I remember reading about the Celebi thing in Pokemon magazine. Like the only way I got a Mew was like getting one of those like things that hacks the Game Boy cartridge, which I still have somewhere. But like, yeah, and like you'd never get that nowadays. Nowadays, Celebi with like a digital download or something like that. They made you work really hard for games back in the 90s and 2000s. Like,
oh yeah, I had to go all the way down to this shopping mall and stand in queue for a bit, and then answer some questions, and then you hand your cartridge over to a guy in a very tight shirt, standing next to a guy in a very hot Pikachu suit who's probably sweating to death in the Australian heat. And he would hand you back like, "Here you go, kid," and then you'd have a Celebi. It's saying it out loud now makes absolutely no sense in modern
enjoy
times.
your legendary Pokemon vegetable.
Off you go, off you. You got your bean sprout now. Go play the games.
All right, we've got 2 or 3 minutes left on the clock. So I believe there was one more game you really wanted to talk about.
I mean, the other game I play quite often with friends and probably am a terrible person for it is Super Smash Brothers.
Excellent.
And, I used to play the N64 all the time, and then I upgraded to the Wii, and my strategy did not change. I am, you know, that really annoying friend you have who plays Kirby, who just goes up and up and up and up, and then smashes back down as a stone. That was me. That is my only strategy. I stand by it, and I am the king of the beatdown until I meet a player who plays Pikachu, who does the beatdown as well, and zaps me as I get
Pikachu
above.
has a lot of really fast tackle moves, doesn't he or she?
But that's the Pikachu's got fast move, but they've also it's got this like you can be down and it does this lightning bolt that comes from above. So if I'm a Kirby floating above him, he'll wait, do it, and the lightning bolt will hit me before I hit him. So whoever played Pikachu would always just spend his time targeting me, and I'd spend the rest of my time just floating around like a pink ball of death.
I've got to say, the last time I played Super Smash Bros. Was actually at a college event with like 4 or 5 people, and there was just so many flashing lights and stimulus that I couldn't even tell what I was doing until I saw the little player one thing just flash off into the distance somewhere miles away. Is that still your experience of it?
Sometimes, but a lot of bars actually do it here. So a lot of like when I was touring in bands and stuff, a lot of the punk venues in Australia will have like a Nintendo or a Wii or something set up in the venue. So quite often you're like sitting at the back of a crowded, dingy, dive bar, and you're playing Super Smash Brothers against just randoms you meet in the bar. So it's a bit more prevalent here than a lot of places.
I can only imagine like alcohol plus Wii motion controls creating some wonderful nights and some horrible accidents at the same time.
Oh, of course. I think the best one I ever saw was I was playing Mario Kart with some guy, and he pulled his cart over to the side of the road, went and got a drink, came back, and then was like indicating to come back onto the road. So we kind of had a look around. I was like, man, that is some very safe driving for Mario Kart.
All right. Well then, Michael, we are nearly out of time. So is there anything you would like to say on the air before we wrap?
No, it's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and thanks so much for having me.
No worries. And you're welcome back on the show anytime you like. Would you mind just plugging your own show just one more time before we stop?
So if you want to hear some, very different geopolitics, so very deep dives with Harvard, Oxford, Cambridge, the White House, and the CIA talking about what's going on in the world, big crash courses on everything you'll need to know about, Venezuela or Nagorno-Karabakh or the Philippines. You can check us out on the Red Line. We're on Apple, Spotify, all the usual podcast places and online and YouTube as well. So the Red Line podcast, and you can listen to me act smart for about an hour and a half.
Excellent. All right, then we'll call time on that episode. Thank you so much, Michael Hilliard. And this has been the Game Corner. We'll be back at the same time next Friday. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.